Welcome to episode 44 of Think Big with Michael Zellner, all positive, no politics. My guest today is Zach Myers. Zach is a multi-platinum musician, singer, and songwriter from Memphis. He has several music collaborations, including Smith and Myers, The Farewell, and Alan Mac Myers, and more. Zach toured with the bands such as Three Doors Down and Saliva as a guitar tech early on in his career before being asked by Shinedown lead singer Brent Smith to fill in and play bass for 2 weeks. And those must have been an amazing 2 weeks, because at the end of them, he was asked to become a full-time guitarist with Shinedown, who he has currently been with now for over 18 years. Zach, welcome to the show.
Thank you for that official bio.
My pleasure. So tell us something interesting about yourself most people don't know.
I love to cook. I've been cooking since I was about 16. I mean, maybe something was that my grandfather was Clyde Gridley, who started Gridley's Barbecue in Memphis. So my family's always been in the food industry. So I started cooking really young. And we cook out here too. Like, a lot of people don't realize, like, I think the most text and Instagram DMs I get from bands are not because they want to tour with us for any other reason of, like, they want to eat, because we cook almost every night. We cooked last night. We got like a bunch of short rib and some steaks and stuff, and cooked out. And so I've been a cook since I was 16. And I that's something I enjoy. That may be something people don't know, I guess.
That's awesome. What do you remember most about your early childhood before you started playing music?
Dude, this is such a weird question, because, like, I had such an amazing childhood. I remember nothing. Like, every once in a while, I'll get like a flash of a memory, or somebody will say something to me and I'll go, oh yeah, I remember that. Like, I remember, like, okay, like, I remember on my 5th birthday, we had it at Chuck E. Cheese on right by the Raleigh Springs Mall. So Austin P, I guess that would be.
Right.
And I remember getting a Zenith television from my grandmother, and it was like, the big, the 1 through 10 clickers were on the top, and the 0 through 99 were on the bottom. I remember that. And I remember, like, little things here and there, but I had such a great childhood, but I don't remember it, which is weird, because I'm kind of known in my band for having this memory. Like, I can tell you where I was 25 years ago today, and what I was wearing, and what the set list was, like, I have a memory like that. But I think it's called equative memory, because, like, if you go, oh yeah, do you remember the last time you played, Omaha, or the first time you played Omaha? And I'll go, yeah, because, okay, well, they played this club there the first time, and there was a pole in the center of the stage. Like, wow. I can remember it due to other things that happened.
Right.
But for some reason, my childhood, I don't have like a ton. I don't have a ton. I don't know. My wife can remember. My wife would be like, oh yeah, I was 3 years old and I was on a swing. And I'm like, huh? How do you remember that?
When you were 11 years old, you went to see Led Zeppelin play at the Pyramid in Memphis, and you talked about, hearing Page and Plant play that really piqued your interest in guitars. Do you remember about that night?
I do remember that night. It was Page and Plant. I wish it was Led Zeppelin, but I mean, I guess it was, because they played Led Zeppelin songs. I remember that was the first time, and that was the first time I kind of got into it, because I remember Page and Plant played, and then I remember 2 weeks later we went to go see Garth Brooks at the Pyramid as well. So that was the first Page and Plant show. I believe that was 95. So it would have been 11, almost 12. And I remember them playing. It was almost like acoustic-esque, like they had an orchestra, and they came out at the end and they did a couple like electric songs. And I really started to take to the guitar, but I don't think I was really into it yet. And then I remember going and seeing Garth Brooks, and not necessarily taking to the guitar, but I wanted to do whatever he was doing, whatever that job was. That's what I wanted to do. So, and then I remember a couple of years later, Page and Plant came back, and that's when I was like, when it was all electric. And I remember going to see him and going, well, I'll go again. It's probably going to be acoustic keyboard. And I remember they opened on like Good Times, Bad Times, and like the lights go out and you hear that, da-na. And I was like, I was such a Led Zeppelin fan by then that I thought that was like the coolest show ever. And then, yeah, then I was like all in, because that's when I had started getting into, you know, Freddie King and BB King and Albert King and Stevie Ray Vaughan and stuff. So, you know, for me, it was, it became a lifestyle choice at that point. Like I want to play guitar, you know.
Zach Sykes, a friend of yours from Appley Middle School, and you decided to enter a talent contest when you were 12. It's, I believe, the first time that you had ever played guitar, and you used his dad's guitar. And
Did you have to interview other people for this interview? How do you know this stuff? I know we've been friends for a long time, but like, no one's ever asked me about Zach Sykes in our middle school talent show.
How did you guys win that talent contest? How did that happen?
I have no idea, but I still have the trophy. You know, we were both playing guitar. His dad Bubba had a red guitar with a white pickguard. It was like a Fender one. And I don't know, I think he might have played his dad's guitar, and I think I played my own, which was like a really shitty Series 10. It was not a good guitar. It was like a Strat body, and it had like this Kramer looking headstock. It was not fantastic. And I think we wrote a song, which whatever that means at the time.
Right.
You know, I didn't have any words or anything. I think we just like wrote like an instrumental thing, and we did it. And I remember getting first place, and I was third. I had been playing guitar for 4 months, maybe, at the time. Like I had just started. It was the only thing in my life that I'd picked up quickly. You know, me and Zach played baseball together. He was way better at baseball than I was. And then I played, I was a black belt in Taekwondo. I did, Gordon Cummings had a place called, it wasn't Cordova Taekwondo at the time. It ended up being that, but it was in that shopping center on Germantown Road where the Sonic is, where like it's across from where Kooky is now, and there's like a Chili's over there.
Yeah.
I used to do Taekwondo in there, and then I remember we went to the Junior Olympics. There's another fact not a lot of people know about me. I went to the Junior Olympics one year and actually did really well. Yeah, so I remember doing that. And then I remember when I picked up guitar, was like, Taekwondo took me a minute to take to. Baseball, I got good at it, but I only got good at it because my brothers were all into sports. So I'm the only musician in my family ever, even to this day. And all my brothers were, you know, big sports guys, softball, you know, football, basketball. So, but yeah, I remember that talent show specifically because I remember that the next one I did, there was a kid named Andrew at our school, and I did it by myself, and I got second place. And that chip has never left my shoulder, by the way.
That's funny.
Still upset.
That's funny. So you finally got your first guitar, I think, when you were around 13, and you took lessons at Yarborough's Music from Rick Forbus. And what did he teach you early on that helped you take it to another level, you know, past the talent show, to be able to play in front of a live audience?
I got the guitar when I was 12. It sat in my closet till right before I was 13. And I was at Raleigh Skateland when I got that guitar. I remember that too. There's something I remember from my childhood. You know, he was firm but loose as far as being a teacher goes, which I think is the best way to be for a kid who's not sure he wants to do something yet. You know, and I think that was maybe the most important thing. Rick's the most important thing that's ever happened to me in music. Honestly, and he still teaches at Yarborough's and privately. So if you're wanting to learn guitar in Memphis, that's the guy to go to. I've probably sent hundreds of people there at this point. Yeah, he taught me the pentatonic scale, and I think that's the main scale that people use on guitar. It's the most common kind of go-to scale. And my hands were too small to play like the songs I wanted to play. You know, I wanted to play Collective Soul songs and Thin Lizzy songs and stuff, you know. And I just remember playing lead first, which was very strange. Not a lot of people kind of go that route. And my hands were so small, I kind of had to do that. So I think him teaching me scales, and we kind of trade off weeks. You know, he had this Mel Bay guitar book. I'll never, this is thing haunts me. The cover of it, I'll never forget what it looks like. It's blue and has like an arch top, like a Gibson, like L1, L5 on it or something. And I remember like the first song, and it's like When the Saints Go Marching In or something. And he would kind of trade weeks with me, and he would go, all right, this week you got to learn something from the book, and next week you bring in a song and I'll teach you how to play the song. But it wasn't like, you got to learn from this book first. This is the Bible of guitar, and that was very helpful again for a kid that was was 13 and was picking stuff up and putting it down and trying to really, I'm not going to say figure out life, because I don't think you need to figure out life by 13, but I think it was a very malleable thing that happened with him that helped me kind of that trajectory of where I ended up going.
In 1996, you were playing at BB King's on bill with Eric Gales, and you met someone who I think you call one of your mentors, Kenny Wayne Shepherd.
Yeah. And
just a few years later, when you were 15, he invited you to play with him at a benefit for the victims of the Jonesboro school shootings in front of about 10,000 people. And y'all developed a really special relationship, over the years. Tell us a little bit about the Kenny that and the influence he's had on your career, please.
I have to pause you for a second, because we've known each other for like 25 years. And I got to tell you this, and I'm not just telling you this. And it maybe because you're from Memphis and you have access to this info. I do interviews all week long. Literally none of them have one question as good as the 5 that you've asked me already.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that a lot.
And I know you're new to this, is like your new thing that you're doing. And I can't even believe you're 45 episodes in yet, but and maybe it's because you're from Memphis, it's like no one digs this deep. Like the fact that you even knew that. All right, I'll answer your question. It was really special to me, because meeting Kenny, I was very nervous, because again, when you grow up and you listen to these people like BB King and Albert King and C. Ray Vaughan, by that time Stevie had already passed. I think Albert may have passed by then too, or wasn't far. Freddie was gone. They seemed unreachable, those people. So when I heard about a kid who was really close to my age, only 4 years older than me, maybe, doing it, I was like, oh my God, this is I can do this. There's a kid who's this blues, I didn't want to be a rock guitar player at the time. I wanted to be a blues guitar player. It was so cool to meet him, and he really was nice to me, and his dad was really nice to me. And, he hit me up, and this is home phone days. This is pre-cell phone, right. And called my home phone when I grew up in Nutbush off of Heartland. So I grew up, if you drive past Jerry Snow Cones and it's on your left, you go across the railroad tracks. Not that there's a good side of that street, I guess. But I grew up on even the worst side of that street. And I remember our home phone was in the kitchen. And I remember my dad going, hey, someone's on the phone for you. And I was like, I was a nerdy kid. I didn't have a ton of friends back then. And it was Kenny. And he was like, hey man, we're playing in Jonesboro, Arkansas. If you want to get up and play with it. And I couldn't, I was so shocked. I couldn't believe it. And I saw pictures from all that. It was amazing. I got these 4 huge shoe boxes full of, people who listen to this now may not know, but if you're younger and you're listening to this, we used to have to go to Walgreens and Rite Aid and places like that to get our pictures developed. And you had to wait a couple days. And, I still have all those. And I remember that show specifically. Oh, I wore the worst shirt. It was like a black, tight, muscle shirt for a person who had no muscles. It was bad.
You're picturing that shirt right now, aren't you?
Yeah, Kenny didn't have a much better one on. He had a silver sparkly shirt on with a tank top underneath.
So you formed your, I believe your first band was called Leisure Highway in 1997, and which was a Southern rock band, and you guys were all young, and within just a few years of playing, you were playing at Elvis Presley's Memphis, BB King's, Memphis in May. What are a few memories you have of the band?
I remember Elton John coming to see us at Elvis Presley's. That was really cool. I got to meet him. And he specifically came to see us, which I thought was really cool. He had heard about this like young band. I mean, I think he did think that we had a piano player though, because I remember him asking about it. He's like, "Cause I thought you guys had a piano player." I was like, "Were you gonna get up and sit in?" Like I was so ballsy at that age. You know, and I remember that was a big one. I always remember the stage stop shows just because I grew up then. That was like my home base. You know, I grew up there. Newbies, obviously, your place, the library. You know, I remember all those things. You know, and it was, you know, it was such a cool time, especially in Memphis for the music scene. You know, Saliva was just starting to form, I think, around then. 97, Black Bone was kind of ending and Saliva was forming. Yeah, it was such a, you know, I'm not a, I don't pine for memories a lot. I'm not one of those people. I always say that, you know, I would say I enjoy watching VHSs of things, but I've always ripped the rearview mirrors off my car, right? Like that's my saying. I don't really like looking back. But I have such a fondness, and I do. There's times where I really miss that camaraderie of that Memphis music scene, you know, and it lasted till about 2006, maybe. That whole, you know, there's a golden age in there somewhere in the middle, right? But the whole thing lasted till about 2006, 2007. And yeah, I really missed that. But the Elton John thing was huge. I remember Crossroads 96 playing. That was my first time, one of my first times ever on stage playing with Homemade Flavor, which was a, you know, huge band for me. But yeah, I remember all that stuff.
You know, after Leisure Highway separated you and Garrett Marshall and, you know, Michael Mo Morales, and started the Zach Myers band. And Mo actually was playing downtown in another band, performing at Mulligan's downtown. And you walked in with your dad, Fred, and a few other people. And he comes off stage, and Mo told me that you said to him, quote, "We're going to steal you," unquote. And he says you've always been like a little brother to him, and that you're, quote, "a very soulful guitar player." You obviously did steal Mo away to play with you and Garrett.
I did.
What was that time together like in Zach Myers band? I know y'all traveled around the world.
Oh, priceless, man. It was, you know, to get a record deal and get signed, you know, 14, 15, you know, like it was really cool. And we had such a brotherhood at the time, you know, because Garrett wasn't that much older than me, 4 or 5 years. You know, Mo was older. I think, you know, Mo was 38 years old at the time. And he hasn't aged. It's so fucked up.
Right.
He looks exactly the same as he did. Me and Garrett, not so much, but he looks the same. It was cool because I remember that. I remember a part that he always tells about the story too is that week I was on the cover of either Memphis Magazine or the Memphis Flyer or something, because he goes, I said, "Hey, we're going to steal you to be in our band." I didn't even have a band yet. And he goes, "Who are you?" And I remember he looked down and I was on the cover of whatever the magazine was that week. I thought that was really cool. No, man, you know, I just remember all these opportunities really opening up once that band got together, because at that time, this is going to be a pretty ostentatious thing to say, but at that time, there weren't many bands with musicianship around Memphis that good. You know, you had your Free World, you had your, you know, I think Human Radio was already kind of done by that point, which is my favorite Memphis band of all time, Human Radio. And, you know, but to see a kid my age doing what I was doing and have a drummer like Garrett, who was only probably 18, 19, doing what he was doing. And then you had Mo, who no one in Memphis played bass like Mo. Right. There were other, you know, Stacy, who has since passed, you know, was around, and there were guys like that, but no one played the bass like Mo. So to have that combination of people, there was just something really special about it. And I remember meeting our manager in Memphis, Vicky Walls, And then I remember her being like, I'm gonna get you guys a deal, blah, blah. And then all these things ended up happening. And she made a lot of that stuff happen. I remember we toured all up the East Coast, again, I'm barely 15 years old. And then it was like, all right, well, we met our attorney, George Klein, who did Jeff Buckley and was Jeff Buckley's manager and did all these things. And then we get offers to play all these blues festivals around the world, and we go do that. And then, all right, well, you guys want to go do a European tour? It's like, this is insanity.
Right.
I'm getting paid to go. I remember sitting next to the Arctic Ocean with Garrett Marshall and Mo, and we were drinking a bottle of Jim Beam, which was like the hardest thing to get in Norway at that time. And I was 15 because I was a fucking idiot, and drinking. And for me, I remember sitting there going like, I want you guys to take in this moment of the fact that we are, 3 people from Memphis, Tennessee, who are being paid to be across the world playing music. We're doing the thing we'd be doing even if we were homeless. If I was homeless, I'd still be in an alley on Beale Street somewhere playing music. And I remember that day, it was May. It was in May, and it was 97, I think 98 maybe. And I remember I've lived by that since that day. Like I am the person that just, I pray every night before I go on stage. And the last thing I always say, for the last 25 years is, never let me take this for granted. And, I live by that saying. And I remember that first time that came out was when we were literally standing with our feet in the Arctic Ocean in Norway,
Colonel Bruce Hampton was an amazing musician, combining elements of jazz, fusion, Southern rock, and jam band styles. And he mentored numerous musicians who became national stars. And you had the chance to play the song Fixin' to Die with him once on stage. And you never played the song before, I believe, but I understand you didn't miss a beat. And he said afterwards, kid can play. He passed away suddenly in 2017. What do you remember most about him?
He was so cool, man. He was I don't know why I'm getting emotional about it. He was the coolest person I've ever met. Like, he had this like James Dean, obviously looked nothing like James Dean. He looked like a janitor at a high school. But he was the coolest person I ever met. I remember, he had a bag full of parlor tricks, man. You'd meet this guy and he'd go, I remember the first time I met him, before I even played with him, he goes, Scorpio. I said, yeah. He goes, November 7th. And I was like, what the fuck?
Gosh.
And he goes, do me a favor. He goes, he handed me a sheet of paper. And he goes, draw a key. I suck at drawing. He goes, draw me a key and then write down what the key goes to. And I drew a skeleton key, and I wrote down the world, key to the whole world. I folded it up, and he goes, all right, throw it in that trash can over there. I threw it in the trash can. He took a sheet of paper and he drew, it looked like I drew it. He drew the exact same key and then drew the earth and handed it to me. And I was like, who are you?
Oh my God.
Yeah. He's just, he was this guy that, it's so weird to have a person like that the general populace of the world doesn't know who this guy is, but every musician you love worships this guy, right? It's such a strange ideal, to have a guy like that. And I remember he was in Memphis. It's about a year before he died, maybe less. And he called me. I hadn't talked to him in years. He said, hey, he goes, you and me are going to go to lunch. I said, anywhere you want to go, let's go. And I remember he was staying, I forgot the name of the hotel, It used to be the Madison. I think they changed it to something else, 52 or something. It's like a number name now. And I picked him up and we went to lunch. And I remember my really good friends I don't take pictures with. I never think about it. You know, you think you're going to see all these people all the time. So why take a picture? And now that was the last time I did that, because I was like, I remember sitting in the lobby with him. He was waiting on his car to pick him up. And I go, let's take a picture. He goes, take it. So I took it. And that's the last picture of me and him that I have. And now I do it. I don't give a fuck, man. I take pictures with everybody. I tell them it's the birthday picture. I go, that's the picture I'm going to post on your birthday on Instagram. But truthfully, it's like, man, you know, when these people pass, it's like, you know, the last couple of years have been so weird.
Yeah.
You know, I remember meeting all these people and never taking pictures with them, or even being friends with them and never having pictures with them. You know, I think about some of my best friends who I don't have pictures with, and I'm like, I got to take pictures with these people now, you know. And now I've gotten into photography again after years of putting it down. And now I just do portraits of my friends. Like it's kind of the thing I do. But no, Bruce was there'll never be another Bruce. And that's, I don't say that a lot about people. He's the most original person ever. And I remember him being impressed with me playing was like the cool, you know, because like, you know, Dave Matthews worships Bruce. Everybody worships, you know, and you know, it was so poetic of him to die on stage, you know, how he did. But it was also, everyone thought he was messing around.
Right.
Because he did that stuff all the time. He acted like he was having a heart attack and fall down because he was playing with this little kid who's such a good guitar player, you know, and he falls down on stage, and it's usually part of the act. And he didn't get up, you know, and me and Mo talked about it. It's like, you know, that guy is just, you know, it was such a Bruce thing to do.
You know, the Zach Myers band worked with American Grammy award-winning music engineer, music producer John Hampton at Ardent in the early 2000s, and he produced, you know, Jimmy and Stevie Ray Vaughan's last album. He worked with the Jim Blossoms, the White Stripes. You credited him with a lot of creativity that came through on your recording. You said at the time, quote, "I don't know what I'm doing. I'm only a guitar player," unquote. Tell us about working with John.
I feel like this is like a therapy session. You're trying to like get every emotion out of me. I'm going to talk about two geniuses in a row who aren't here anymore. You know, Hampton was, there's not a lot of producers left. And for people listening who don't, a producer isn't the guy who records you. The guy who records you is an engineer. The guy who presses all the buttons and sets up all the mics. The producer is the guy who's trying to make the song as best as it can be after it's written, and going, you know, we should put a horn section here. The bridge shouldn't be this. It should be this. Now, a lot of producers do engineer.
Right.
Hampton was one of those people. We did have an engineer in Ardent. I just remember being at Ardent, and it was, you know, it was like it was like the holy grail for me to record there. I remember walking in there to have the first meeting with him, and I was just like, oh my God, all the records, you know, some of my favorite records were recorded here by this guy. And he was so strange, man. He was the weirdest guy ever. And he was just so cool, man. You'd come in, and on the first record, he was smoking cigars all the time. This is in the 90s, you know, you could smoke inside, no one cared. And I remember that we'd be tracking, and we'd track everything live, you know, we were on tape too, you know, you couldn't make mistakes. Pro Tools was just in the infancy. I think maybe one studio in Ardent even had it, and like you know, they're all trying to sit around and learn it. So we're tracking the tape, so you've got to be perfect. And I remember him sitting there and always have a cigar, and he would just be bobbing his head. And if someone hit something he didn't like, because he was always kind of doing this yes motion. And then if you're listening and not watching the video, I'm kind of just doing like this kind of rock back and forth yes motion. And then if you hit a bad note, he would just go and change it to like a no motion, and then go right back to this. And that's how the engineer knew what part of the tape that he didn't like.
Right.
So I remember that vividly. And then I remember another time I was in there, and we were going through amps. He was a big amp guy, and he'd want to get the perfect tone. And I was playing a Strat it was like a relic Strat. It wasn't like an actual old one, but it looked like Stevie's. And I was playing this super reverb, this 410 super reverb, and I had my left foot up on it, and I was back in the amp room. And I remember he walked in and he's like, hold on a second. And he goes back to his office and he gets a picture of Stevie in that same spot with his same foot up on that same amp playing. And I was like, I'm an emotional mess anyway. So I start crying and I'm like, this is amazing. And like, it was like literally like a recreation of the picture. So he took a picture of me that I still have of me playing that amp. I don't have the picture of Stevie. I wish I did. And then the next week we were tracking because I got a surprise for you. And Jimmy Vaughn walks in. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is so cool, And I wasn't like, I'm more of a Jimmy Vaughn fan now than I was then. I just was a fan because this was Stevie Ray Vaughan's brother, and I loved that record they did together, Family Style, that Hampton did. And Jimmy, I remember, was driving. It wasn't his, but he had this old like rental Cadillac, and he was like, "Come outside for a second." And I went outside, and he opened the trunk, and there was a guitar case. And for some reason, I knew what that guitar case was. And it was Stevie's number one. And I'm getting chills right now talking about it. And he opened it up. And to this day, I can maybe count on one hand how many times I've cried that hard. And he like handed it to me. And I like got to play it. And I was losing my mind. But, to go back to Hampton, just creative genius that I remember one time I was in the studio with him. He was mixing our stuff, but he was recording another band. It might have been Gin Blossoms or something, but he was missing. There was a song where the singer was like, it was like a saying like she or C or something, and he was missing the S. Somehow the S didn't show up on the tape. And he goes, I go, you want me to go in there and just go like, and like add it? And he goes, no. He goes, I got an idea. He goes, when I tell you to, he goes, press record. I was like, all right. And then there's a tape. And, again, this is all on tape. This isn't Pro Tools, people, where you can just be like, oh, I'll just add one from another. Like you couldn't do that. You had to put the tape right up to the part. And I go, okay. And then the tape guy is right there and he got it ready. So I hit record on the big tape machine, hit record. And he has a hairspray bottle and a sheet of paper, and he sprays it in front of the microphone. And it was like perfect. Like the word was like perfect in there. And I was like, oh my God, this is insanity what he just did. And I also remember one time Garrett Marshall, there was like a drum fill that he didn't like. And I remember him going, like rolling the tape up and go, oh, I think it's right here. And he just cuts the tape in half. And I was like, tape it's more expensive now, but back then it was even expensive. And I remember him doing that. And I remember him like putting another piece of tape and scotch taping it to the tape, a blank piece of tape. And Garrett re-recorded the fill. And I'm like, this is insane. But yeah, he was, I was really sad when he died, man. It felt like it was, people go and you go, oh, that's too soon or whatever. But it really, I've only had a couple deaths in my life feel like they were out of place or out of order. I feel like that was one of them,
What is the most useless talent you have?
I'll show you. All my fingers are double jointed. I can do this. It hurts like shit to do it now because I'm older, but no one else I know can do it. It hurts really bad because I can move. What's another one? You know what, man? I told my wife the other day, I got to start writing these down because people do ask me that question. They're like, what's your favorite something? And I always forget. And then, I'll be in my car, on Elvis Presley, be like, oh, I know what it is. Like I never remember. What's a good one? I can usually find fish in any lake. So I don't know if it's useless talent. But yeah, that's a good one. I can usually find a good fishing hole anywhere. Yesterday I struck out really bad, but I take that back. I caught fish. They just weren't big.
Okay. After ZMB, you went out on tour with a few different bands as guitar tech. I mentioned a couple of them earlier, including Saliva, where I think you were Cristobaldo's tech, and
Yeah.
Josie was the
Then
lead singer.
bass player. Yeah.
And Josie was singing, and you guys had known each other since 13, back when Saliva and y'all were playing together, all over Memphis, and then you got to play bass and guitar for Saliva before joining Shinedown. You recently had Josie up on stage with you guys in St. Louis, and you talked about how he's lost over 100 pounds and looks so healthy and good. Tell us a little bit about Josie and Chris and your time with Saliva in the early 2000s and what you learned from that experience.
I met Josie at the stage stop. I don't know if I was in a band yet. 12, 13. Saliva had just started, and I was and Leisure Highway was kind of just starting. Or maybe ending. I think Leisure Highway actually started before Saliva was a band. And I remember meeting him, and then I remember once Zach Myers' band had kind of formed, well, it doesn't matter now. This place has been closed for 15 years, but I remember going to Platinum Plus at 14, which is not the age you're supposed to go there, by the way. And I remember I could always get in. They would always sneak me in the back door. But I remember Josie was the bouncer
right
there. Josie was the door guy. So me and Josie started hanging out all the time. And I remember them going to their practice space forever. And then, and then once I had, the Zach Myers band ended, I look at my life now and I can't say that it ended any earlier than it should have. But at the time, it felt like it ended earlier than it should have because, we were on this label and I had started writing songs to be in a rock band. I wanted to write rock songs, and I was getting fairly good at it. I mean, I don't remember many of those songs. They probably weren't as good as I thought they were. But I remember bringing them to the label and going, this is the new record. And they're like, oh, well, we can give these to other bands. These are good songs. These could be radio songs for a rock band. And I go, no, these are for our record. And they're like, no, you do this thing. You're the cute little blues kid. And I remember we had the worst deal ever, dude. We were on MCA Nashville, which is a major label. And the only way I could get out of the deal was break the band up. Dissolution of the business. So we got back from Europe, and it was never Black Crows, we weren't fighting, but we weren't necessarily all hanging out either at the time. We were touring, but there was a weird vibe. And I remember being at the airport, Memphis airport, we had just landed, and I said, I go, I'll see you guys soon. And Mo was like, and we didn't see each other for a long time after that because I broke the band up. But what happened was, when that happened, I hated the music industry and I didn't want to be a part of, I didn't want any business. And I remember Chris from Saliva going, hey man, we got like 5 shows in Texas. We're just going to raw dog it. They were already a big band by this point. He said, we're just going to raw dog it. We're just going to take the money and run. So we're going to go do them in a van. He's like, do you want to be guitar tech, or do you know any guitar techs? I'm like, I'll do it. He was like, really? I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. So I remember going down there and doing it. And that's how I got my nickname that Josie still calls me to this day. We were eating at one of those bullshit Texas Roadhouse type places. And the kids menu was called the Little Wranglers menu. And so they started calling me the Little Wrangler, and they still do forever. Like anytime I see anybody in that band, they call me Wrangler or Little Wrangler. I was 18, 19. And we went down there and did it. And then I remember about 4 months later, Dave was going to either get married or have a kid or something. And he wanted to take a couple months off. So I was like, yeah, I'll play bass. So I'd been teching for them for like 6 months, and then started playing bass. And then from then I went on and I teched for Dierks Bentley and Aerosmith and a band called Future Leaders of the World and Chevelle and Sister Hazel. And then I got approached by Three Doors Down because I was playing bass for Saliva. And they said, hey, we're looking for a guy. And I was like, I remember, funny story about John Hampton. I remember when they were making their first album, we were in Studio B, they were in Studio A making their first album. And John took a lunch break He was like, all right. He's like, we were eating lunch in the hallway. And I remember seeing their Three Doors Down's guitar player, Chris, at the time. And he always wore an Ardent shirt. So I legitimately thought he worked there because he didn't look like a band guy. And about the third day, we were out there and I was sitting lunch with John, and John goes, oh, hey, Chris, have you met Zach? And I go, oh, no, nice to meet you. He's like, he's in a band called Six Doors Down or something. And Chris goes, Three Doors Down. And I go, oh, I'd love to hear some of your stuff. So they took me and Matt Healy, who's actually out here on tour with me now. He's been with me for 24 years. He goes, come listen to our stuff. And it's me, Matt, and Garrett. And he played me Kryptonite. And I go, oh, fuck. It's like, this band's going to be like one of the biggest bands in the world. And then another funny story about Saliva is Paul broke his ankle the 3 days before, a night before Xmas. Remember that show that 93X did?
Yeah.
And we were going on right before Saliva, which was the headliner. And they go, do you know another band? I'm like, hey, they're not local. I'm like, they're from Mississippi, but this band Three Doors Down's in the studio with us. And I remember they played that show, and that was the last show Brad played, because Brad was originally the drummer and the singer of Three Doors Down. So it was the last show that Brad played drums and sang. I remember that. And so I started working for Three Doors Down, and then there you go. And then I actually went back to Saliva too to play rhythm guitar for a little bit.
I love Matt. Matt's a good guy.
Matt's the best. He's been with me for 24 years. Matt knows where all the bodies are buried.
Do you prefer to listen to music or to create it?
Oh, listen to it. Creating it is torturous at times. I'd much rather listen to it. Creating it's fun, but I like creating. When you do it and you're doing it good, it's fun. When you're doing it and you're smashing your head against the wall, it's not fun. No one's ever asked me that.
Is there anything in the music industry that you would like to change?
Yeah, I would like a couple things. Obviously, the streaming thing I think is total bullshit. You know, we got a plaque the other day from Pandora. This thing says the Billionaires Club. It's whatever, it's like 5 billion streams. I said, man, what if I had a quarter for every stream?
Right.
It'd be great. Listen, I'm not crying poor. I've done very well for myself, but you know, I would change the streaming numbers. These people are making gazillions of dollars and not giving it to artists. All of them. I'm not calling out one of them. They're all bad. They're all shitty. Right. I would make labels and managers develop artists more instead of just getting on TikTok and going, this is the guy, make him a star. You know, it's worked out for some people. You know, look at somebody like Cardi B, you know, like she wasn't a rapper really, you know, and it ended up making her a star, you know, and she's good, you know, but I think, I'm gonna tell you what, if I was do this whole career I have over again, right now I'm 13. I'm not joining a fucking band. Crazy. Right. It's the last way to make money right now. Like if you didn't get in on, you know what I mean? Like you have to be some sort of Instagram. You know, my joke is always, I don't dance. You know, I don't have TikTok on my phone. I've never had it. I'm a grown ass man. I don't need to be looking at girls, you know, twerking near their mailbox. You know, I don't care. It's just not, you know, and that may sound very get off my lawn, old man-y, but I just don't care. I don't, you know, I'm sure it's funny and I'm sure there's stuff on it that is hilarious. My text with all my brothers is they just send, that's all they send. And I'm like, I don't have TikTok. I can't watch any of this stuff. Right. You know, but I wish the music industry was more about the song and the songwriter like it used to be, more than what can make us money right now, you know, and those are the things I would change. You know, I got a good life. I can't really, but those are the things I would change for other people. You know, I can't see myself being a young person right now going, I want to start a band. Like, you know, I wish it was always like that. You know, I do think people like Ed Sheeran are so healthy for this music industry. You know, a guy with a guitar, no band, him and a guitar, on stage drawing 100,000 people a night. You know, like that is, if that doesn't make you want to play the fucking guitar,
Right.
like, come on, man. Like, that's amazing. Like, I love people like that.
Singer Shawn Mendes recently canceled his tour to take care of himself, and he said, quote, he's hitting a breaking point, unquote. You posted about this and said, this should be celebrated and encouraged. Shout out to you, Shawn Mendes. You come first always. I completely agree with you. You must take care of yourself. You know, mental health is so important in everyday life with everyone. And I think a lot of people just want to see the band and hear the music and forget about how stressful the life is like on the road for musicians sometimes. How have you been able to handle that and do what you've done for so many years?
Badly right now. No, I'm the king of spreading myself too thin. No, with the Shawn Mendes thing, I think I get mad when people get pissed off when someone says stuff like that. Well, I was taking my daughter to see, you know what? Fuck you and your daughter. Right. You know, like at some point, we're not zoo animals, right? You know what I mean? Like at some point, we can't be paraded out there because you want to see, you know, it's like this guy was obviously down in it and going through it. And what would happen is if that guy and his daughter, that the guy leaving the mean comments on the Instagram, got to see him a week later, that guy may be hanging in a hotel room somewhere, you know, like, you know, I think it's very important. You know, we've been talking about mental health for 20 years on my band, you know, from 45 on, you know, we have songs like Get Up. We have songs like Daylight. You know, we have all these things that they're very important, you know, and I told somebody the other day, I'm like, they're like, how you doing? I'm like, my mental health is on low power mode. Like when your iPhone goes into low power mode, I go, that's where I'm at because, you know, I did this tour. I went to Europe. I did another tour. And then as soon as that tour ended, I was like, oh, I have 2.5 weeks off. I'm going to take 2 weeks of it and go on tour with Hampton, my friends who asked me to come out. I played on their record. And was it fun? Absolutely. Was it at the risk of my own mental health? Absolutely. And I'm better now. I had a rough day 2 days ago when I told you I had strep, and then I was bringing my family out here on the road. Like I had my own bus coming out with like literally just my wife and my 2 kids. And it's been so hard to find drivers and stuff. Everything kind of ended up stacking up against us. So now I'm not bringing that bus out with my family. So it's tough, man. I think people don't realize that. Yeah, listen, no one has a fucking better job than me. Nobody, not George Clooney, not an astronaut, nobody. I have the best job in the world. I get to, in real time, watch people enjoy something that makes them happy in real time. Like if you think of an actor, they get to make it and make it and make it. And then they put it out and they don't get to be there when the person experiences it. I get to watch the people experience it every single night. 10,000, 15, 20,000 people a night. You know, it is, but people don't realize that that's 2 hours out of a 24-hour day. You know, the other 22 hours, I'm doing things like this. I'm working out. I'm working on myself, and honestly, like sometimes the boredom is good, right? Like sometimes the boredom makes me go from 183 pounds to 161 pounds, which I've done in the last month and a half. I know you've just lost how much did you lose?
90.
That's absurd. Congratulations. And you know, just as well as I know that what's one of those things, right, where only you can do it. I'm sure you have people in your life telling you the whole time, you should just do it. You got to do it. And it's like, you're not ready till you're ready. It's the same with addiction, right? Like, I have a singer who, hasn't been a drug addict in almost 10 years, but he still is because he was, he always says, I'm an alcoholic, I'm a drug addict, I'll be that for the rest of my life. Now he hasn't been in years, in almost a decade, but he had to do it when he was ready. I was telling him to stop 20 years ago, he wasn't ready, you know? So like, you know, sometimes the boredom works in your favor. Sometimes the boredom goes, you know what? I'm holding my breath when I tie my shoes. I'm going to lose this weight. You know, I wasn't huge. I wasn't this big guy, but I was unhappy with myself. So I'm going to fix it, you know, and that's what I decided to do. And, you know, I got kids now. So like, you know, we always say it's 22 hours of nothing and 2 hours of the greatest job on earth, you know? So it's like, I think what the people need to realize is that, you know, words can hurt people. So the stuff you say on Facebook and Instagram and all this stuff, like everybody's not me. You know what I mean? I don't take anything on Facebook personally. I'll go back at you, you know, and everyone knows that about me. But I don't think people realize my tone of voice when I comment, you know, because like, you know, I'll say something back. Like if you're rude to me, I'm gonna hit you where it hurts. My band says that because I'm the youngest one in the band, so I get picked on all the time. My band says, you know, I don't respond often, but when I do, I'll put you in fucking therapy. You know, and that's me. You know, if I'm gonna respond, I'm gonna hit you exactly where it's gonna hurt. And maybe that's something I shouldn't do, right? Because that could be somebody's sensitive spot. But to me, like if you're being online and you're a bully and you're going for it, I don't have a sensitive place for you. But no, man, I don't think people realize that stuff can affect other people, even though it doesn't affect me. People can get on and go, "Oh, your band sucks." You're like, I don't give a fuck, man. Right. There's 15,000 people tonight that are gonna think that I'm awesome and my band's awesome. So I don't care what, you know, Judd in Birmingham, Alabama. I don't give a fuck. You know, like I don't care. You know why? Dude, once I had kids, man, I used to care so much about what people thought about me. Like if I had like, you know, girlfriends or whatever, they were like, oh yeah, so-and-so from this band said like, you know, whatever. I'm like, oh, I'll be like, why did he say that? Like, and literally like not sleep over it, like trying to figure out why this guy was talking shit about me. Dude, once I had kids, I couldn't give less of a shit. What my saying is this: someone else's opinion of you is none of your business. It's not your business. So the mental health aspect of it for me is do your thing, be happy, surround yourself with people who are like-minded. And when you can't, look into yourself and try to do the best you can. I found that helping people helps me. You know, that's why I've given a quarter of the money I've made my entire life, probably to St. Jude. You know, I like helping people. You know, it's my favorite thing to do. Nothing makes me feel better than helping someone else.
Do you sing in the shower?
No. I write stand-up comedy in the shower.
Oh, you do?
Mm-hmm.
So you've been with, you know, Shinedown for over 18 years now. You know, Shinedown, you know, sold more than 10 million albums, 10 million singles worldwide. You have 14 platinum and gold singles, 6 platinum and gold albums, 19 number one on Active Rock. You know, out of the 29 singles the band has released in its existence, 18 of them have reached number one on the Billboard Mainstream Charts, more than anyone in the 41 history of the charts experience.
19 now.
19. Wow.
19 now.
19. You guys were recently named Billboard's greatest of all time artist. And to put it in perspective, as amazing as Van Halen was and always will be, they had 13 number one songs. I know you're pretty modest, but if you're able to put it into words, what has this whole experience been like, you know, playing with the band all over the world? Been for
Monopoly money. That's what I tell people all the time. It's monopoly money. Feels good to have in your pocket. Not worth anything. You know, fucking Van Halen's Van Halen, man. You know, like, you know, dude, when we beat Tom Petty is when I was like, all right, this is bullshit. Right. You know, because I call it the 3 Ps: Petty, Prime, Prince. Those are my 3 all time, you know. So I don't know, man. I feel good to be recognized for the work. I feel good that it's songs. You know, I tell people I care about 3 things: the song, the song, and the song. think if you have a good song, that's all you need. You know, we call it the Quincy Jones method. He always said, if you can play it with one finger on a piano and remember it, it's a good song. And we try to write songs like that. You know, we try to write songs that, you know, people always ask us, you know, all these bands you came up with, you know, in the early 2000s, you know, like, you know, all the modern rock bands, I'm not going to name any of them. But they're either not here anymore or they're playing fucking bar and grills, you know, and it's like, why you guys? And I said, you know, we chose to write, as unpopular maybe at the time as it might have been. We didn't choose to write songs about getting our dick sucked or partying or, you know what I mean? It wasn't, we wanted to write songs that people could play for their kids once they had kids. And then once their kids had kids, you know, my favorite part of a Shinedown show is in the last 12 years, I've never seen a Shinedown show where there wasn't at least one 3-generation family. Like, I mean, grandfather, kid, grandkid, you know, like, I love that. We don't cuss on stage, you know, I don't care if anybody, we have Jelly Roll out on tour with us. Like every other word is the F word, you know what I mean? Right. So like, we don't frown on anybody doing it. It's a personal choice for us because, you know, there's going to be tonight sold out. I think it's like 13,000 people. There will be at least 1,200 kids in that audience. And, you know, like, I'm not going to go up there, put your motherfucking, you know, like, I don't care who does.
Right.
Yeah, I do you. It's a personal choice that we make that we're not going to do it. Yeah, you know, I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for everything. I'm grateful for the bad. I'm grateful for the good. I'm grateful for all the bullshit our band has gone through. And it's been a lot. You know, we had 2 people on the front line of this band change, you know, God, 15 years ago now. You know, and no one brings it, you know, a lot of people don't know that there were ever 2 other people in the band. You know, I was in the original version of the band that had the original bass player and the original other guitar player. And we were a 2 guitar player band. Right. And 3% of our fans know that. We became most of them after all that, you know. And truthfully, when you look back at it, and I'm not those guys, Brent, Barry, Jason, and Brad started this band. I'm not taking it either way. But when you look back at the big picture of the band, you know, Brad was in the band for 4.5 years, 5 years. Jason was in the band for 5 years. I've been here 18. You know, Eric's been here end of 07, so 15. You know, it's I take all of it, the good, the bad, the ugly. You know, we're a band of 4 guys who no one makes more money than anybody else. We live in a glass house. Everyone knows what everyone's doing. We get along. We don't have to ride the same bus anymore, but we still do. We don't have to share dressing rooms anymore, but we still do. We eat our meals together every day. You know, like, that's, dude, take all the money away to be in a band this long at this age with 3 other adult males and still get along the way we do. We literally, all the 4 of us were out cooking out last night, hanging out together. This is the greatest thing ever, man. I know bands that can't be on the same side of the arena as each other.
How do you think that social media has changed the music industry?
That's tough. It's helped a lot of people and it's hurt a lot of people. I think it made people look way less cool. You know, I always joke and say that, you know, when I was a kid, I probably spent half of my time wondering what Jimmy Page was doing right now. Now I can go, oh, look, he's at Starbucks. They spelled his name wrong on his cup. You know, I'm like, he just posted it. I'm like, no, I want Jimmy Page to be worshiping Satan and throwing salmon at some chick tied up against the wall who's like into, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
You know, that's what I thought they were doing, right. You know, like, and so, you know, I don't know. It's such a love-hate relationship I have with that thing. I can't stop staring at it. I'm on it way too much. But I get the necessity of it now. I do hate that we, I remember us having to read magazines and look at Maxwell House or not Maxwell House, that's coffee, Columbia House, and order CDs and you have to wait,
Right.
And now it's like instant gratification. You got to have it right now. If you don't have it right now, dude, I read an article the other day by a Harvard medical, forgot the guy's name, and he was saying that the kids can't even watch movies anymore. They don't have like 13-year-olds don't have the attention span. Their attention span's like 15 minutes. Like they can't watch like a movie. It's wild to me, man.
Right.
Like I can't, so I think it's done a lot of bad, and it's also done a lot of good. I think for music, there's people now who can go out and make a career by being a TikTok star. And listen, as much as I might have talked shit about it earlier, I don't knock it. If you can hustle at this and do your thing, God bless you, man. Do it. I ain't gonna knock anybody for making money, however they make it, unless they're selling children or some shit. I think that, I think it's good and it's bad. I think that's the simplest way I can put it. I think it helps people, and I think it when you got the people deleting their grandmother off Facebook because they voted for a different guy than you voted for, then it's stupid.
Yep. Brent has an amazing voice, so I'm not going to try to sing these 8 words here. The quote, "Even in madness, I know you still believe," unquote. I think you said that's your favorite Shinedown lyric.
I was about to say, how did you? Yeah, that's my favorite lyric.
Yeah. What do those words mean to you?
I think that it means that no matter what's going on in your life, in any situation, whether, I'm a person who believes in God, right? I halt to call myself a Christian because I think there's some values that have been bestowed on some of that's not really my game, but I believe in God and I believe in a higher power. I think sometimes for me, it means when I go visit St. Jude, those are the times I question God, and go, well, if you're real, how could this be a thing? But that's where that line comes in. Even in madness, even when everything's at its worst, I know you still believe. It also can mean even, when I'm in the gym and, I normally do 6 weight exercises, 4 sets of 12 or 15. Well, the other day, the day before I told you I got sick, I'm in there and I'm, I just bench I'm not trying to be huge. I'm benching like a modest 100 and I do 4 sets of 12. I was on set 1 and I was like on 8 and I was like weak. I had no energy. That's when that quote comes in, I think it means a million things. That's kind of why, I've never asked him what it means to him. I wasn't there with him when he wrote that song. I was in the band at the time, but I don't know. I don't like to tell people what lyrics are, because I'm a huge John Prine fan, right? And John Prine has some weird ass songs, but if I listen to a song and go, and I talk to him and he, John Prine was also a weird guy. And I'm like, what is this about? And he's like, oh, I wrote it about a ham sandwich. I'm like, this fucks this song up so bad for me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to know. People don't need to know how the donuts are made, man. Just eat the donuts, I think that lines like that, there's another one in Get Up. If you were ever in doubt, don't sell yourself short. You might be bulletproof. There's a line in Amaryllis that said, no, I can't remember it. And I know it ends with the days like this, like, you know, you never thought there'd be days like this or something like that. You know, I said it's our, you know, our bass player has struggles with mental health horribly. He's, you know, it could be borderline bipolar, you know, it's where his depression is, it swings either way. And he's one of the best people I know. But, you know, the other night he had a rough one on stage, and I just, you know, I said to myself, I'm like, you know, we don't write songs like Get Up for the good days. You know, you write it for the bad days, you know, and those, you know, I think that's what those things are for. But yeah, even the fans always say, write down your favorite lyric and I'm going to get it tattooed on me. And that's the one I always write down.
You know, Cameo is an online service that lets people hire celebrities to create, you know, personalized videos, and you're on there and you talk about how you've given a lot of money to St. Jude, you know, for research hospital here in Memphis. You know, it's for cancer research, and that's just so awesome. You know, one person said of the video you made for them, quote, "No words can express how thankful we are that you made this video for Jody. You guys are an inspiration to our family, and you help us through our daily lives. We can't wait to see you guys in Pennsylvania. Stay awesome. Look forward to Planet Zero," unquote. Reading those amazing testimonials must make you feel really good knowing that you've touched so many people this way.
You know, when I got on it, a friend of mine from another band got me on it, and I was so against it. Even in my intro video, which is still 2.5 years old when I recorded it, I say, "Here I am, a whore before you." And I think I mentioned something about sailors or something. I didn't want to do it. I was like, I don't need money. This is stupid. It felt real reality TV-ish, real whorish. I don't know. It felt like online panhandling in a way. And I didn't love it. And I was on it for about a week. And I was about to get off of it because it was like, oh, hey, happy birthday, James. You know, like, but you know what I did in that first week? I found a way to do them. And I watched a lot of other people's. I watched a lot of the super big ones at the time. Charlie Sheen, the guy from The Office, is really good. He makes the most money of anybody on there. And I watched a lot of people's, and I saw how his are really good. But like, you know, Charlie Sheen would get $1,500 for like one video, and it would be like 20 seconds long. And I'm like, what?
Right.
And I found a way to make them my own, make them personal. And I remember I got one, and it was a lady who got it for herself, and she had cancer. And I remember like breaking down like on the video and like crying. And like my fans know now, like if I say it's about to get real, they know they're not allowed to post the video on social media. If it's just like, hey, Mike, I heard you're graduating from college. You want to wish, you know, blah, blah. You can post that shit all day long. But our fans know now, if I say I'm about to be real, I don't even have to say it anymore. They won't post the video online because I'll say something personal about my life that no one knows, you know. And I remember doing that and like breaking down and crying and like talking to this person and telling them something and not to give up and to hold on to stuff. And, you know, I was like, I know why I'm on here now. Like it means something to me. And it doesn't hurt. I give half the money to St. Jude, you know, and I've made, you know, again, I thought it was a stupid thing. And now I really enjoy it. When I'm out on the road, so many expire. I got to get back on it. But, you know, to this day, I've been on there 2.5 years. I give 50% up to St. Jude. So I've given $25,000 to St. Jude from making 2-minute videos for people. You know, it's cool too. It's become like kind of this community. Like, and I have my person there that I connect with. If they're like, hey, you know, I'll have people go, I want you to, you know, you don't have to say anything, but you have to play Simple Man. I'm like, cancel. Like, I'm not doing this shit. You know, because some people still think you're a zoo lion. You know what I mean? Do a trick. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. You know, so, but it's a cool way to connect with people, man. I feel like less of a whore now that I do it. It's, you know, honestly, I'm not mad at the money either, you know?
Right.
Bought my Bronco.
I saw that.
Yeah.
It's wrapped now?
Yeah, it's done. The whole thing's done.
You talked about you recently, we're on pop rock trio Hanson's new song, Don't Let Me Down. And you guys all made a really funny video along with actor Frankie Muniz that people can find on YouTube. You got to watch it. You look like you're having a really great time cleaning there at the beginning of the video, Zach. That looked like it must have been a lot of fun to make.
It was super fun. I've made 3 videos now that were the most fun ever. Our video for Enemies, which is our amongst our fans, one of their favorite videos because it's us like beating the shit out of each other at a band meeting. A video called Asking For It, which we did, which was for a song that definitely shouldn't have been a single. It did go #1, but it should, I don't know. It was a wrong choice for a single, but the video is hilarious. And it's kind of making fun of the music industry. It's making fun of us. Like we're not afraid to make fun of ourselves. And in that video, you can really tell because there's like a kid version of us in the video. And like, I'm the manager playing this just like douchey, like I got 2 cell phones. It's utterly ridiculous. There's a long form version of it that's like 11 minutes long. And that's the one to watch. And then this Hampton video, I remember playing on the record. Zach asked me to play on the record. And I was like, I would love to. I've been friends with these guys forever. Truly one of my favorite bands. And I mean that. And he goes, I got this idea for a video. And I go, because the song is very inspiring, but that's where you can kind of go, all right, well, I'm going to make an inspiring video, or I'm just going to make something completely ridiculous. And he goes, think dodgeball. And I was like, I don't care what I'm doing. I'm there. Give me a date well in advance so I can cancel whatever I have or make sure we don't book anything this day. And I ended up doing the video and it was so funny. Like the beginning of that video, the strangest thing ever is as a grown man who at that time was, again, probably 180 pounds, having another grown man pick you up against your will under your arms like a child is the strangest feeling I've ever had. Never had anything that weird happen to me. It was so weird, but making the video was so hilarious. And there's I don't know if people know this, there is a 4th Hanson brother. He's not in the band. His name is Mac Hanson, and he directed the video. He lives in LA. He works in that industry, and he directed the video, and it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, you got to watch it if you haven't seen it. It is very funny.
It's worth the watch, whether you like me or don't, or like Hanson or don't. It's a hilarious video.
You said, quote, how do you get one of your favorite hardcore bands played on the radio? You get your own Sirius XM Octane station, unquote. Yeah. That's pretty awesome. How did that come about?
Oh, we were doing the Sirius XM small stages thing. And they were like, hey, we want to give you your own Sirius XM station for a month. And I was like, that's kind of cool. Like, I like that idea. And so they did. And I literally had to sit here like this with this microphone and whatever state I think I was in Canada, and I had to record like hours of like, and you're not in a station, you have to be like, and that was, Toby Keith should have been a cowboy, right. You got to do that. But, I listen to, my music taste is, I think people think I just like sit and listen to music like what we make all day. Like nothing could be further from the truth. I listen to like Jackson Brown and, James Taylor and stuff like that. So, taking over once before we got our own channel, the first weekend was on Octane. So you can imagine people who want to listen to Disturbed and Linkin Park and all these things get on there. And I'm playing George Strait, so I think it freaked people out for a while, but then I get to play bands like Glassjaw, which is my favorite New York hardcore band of all time. And one of my favorite top 10 favorite bands. So it was just a funny joke to make that, I was like, oh yeah, they never really get played on radio. So I'm like, oh, I know how to play them on radio. Just give us our own station and I'll play all the bands I want to play.
Shinedown has a really strong wrestling connection with, I believe, 6 of the band's, songs are played on WWE shows. And you guys recently played in Knoxville and lead singer Brent Smith's hometown. And you said, quote, a kid from Knoxville with a former felony on his record is given a key to the city by WWE Hall of Famer, who's one of the most well-known wrestlers in history, who's now the mayor, will walk out with full production and pyro with his original Kane intro, unquote. What was that night like for Brent and you guys too?
Brent didn't know. We kept it from him the whole time. No one knows. So the backstory of this is John, our security guy, is a former Secret Service guy, worked at the White House, can get in touch with literally anyone. I don't know how he does it. He just can do it. He's amazing. And he said, he goes, I think we're going to get Brent the key to the city. I was like, that's really cool. He goes, he goes, the mayor's going to bring that. And I was like, isn't the mayor of Knoxville Kane? He's like, yeah. I'm like, what? This doesn't seem real. So we go and do a Zoom meeting a couple days before. I had flown home actually to see my kids. That was in that month. I was doing the Hampton thing, and we had done a show in North Carolina, and I was like, I got to go home for a couple days before this. So we have a meeting on Zoom with him. And before the meeting, me and John have a podcast together too, called Seemingly Unknown. And I call him just because we have a very strange sense of humor. I go, dude, I said, totally kidding, by the way. I said, I'm going to ask him if he'll come out. Like, we'll play the Kane intro, do the fire, everything, and he'll come out. And we're dying on the phone laughing because this guy's a mayor. We get on the Zoom call. He's in a suit, he's the mayor. And of course I don't ask him. And then John at the very end of the call goes, hey, Mayor, Zach had a weird idea. I'm like, oh, you son of a bitch. He just threw me under the bus. He goes, we were wondering, we have full production and pyro and lighting and all that. Like, we were wondering if we played your intro with like fire, like, would you? And like, John didn't even finish saying it. And he goes, absolutely. We were like, what? This is a real thing. So Brent had no idea. So the trick was Brent's routine on stage does not change. He sings the song. He has like a little water set up back in the back. He's got hot water and room temperature water. And he just kind of goes back and forth between the two. And John's always back there, our security guy. They talk between songs, and I talk to Brent between songs. So the trick was we have this huge video wall on stage. It's like a 40-foot monolith that opens up. Well, that's kind of where Brent goes when me and Eric sing a song by ourselves. I said, we can't have him back there because Kane's going to be back there. So Barry, our drummer, came up with this idea. He's like, Chris Lightcap, our monitor guy, said, let's tell him something. He needs to change out Brent's in-ear pack, the thing that he listens to. Something's wrong with it. If you throw Brent off like that, he freaks out. He's like, whoa. So he starts freaking out, but that's how we got him off the stage. And then we start talking, and we had a key word. And so when the key word happened, all the lights go out, concussion, Kane come. It was so certain. And in Knoxville, it was like a wrestling like pop. Like if you watch the video, everyone knows exactly what's happening, for example. But it was really cool, man. It was for Brent to have that happen, and he got very emotional. I was actually FaceTiming his son, so his son could see everything. His son's 15, and his son thought that was just like the coolest thing ever. So it was pretty cool.
Shinedown's latest album, Planet Zero, I believe came out July 1st. And a few things you've said about the album are, quote, I can say today, right now, this is my favorite collection of songs on a record this band has put forth. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you listen to this album for way more than face value. I hope you dive into it lyrically, what it's saying. This album is certainly one of a kind, unquote. And you also said, quote, the fact of the matter is, for us, we chose to write songs that would maybe carry on a little bit longer. We didn't want to write party songs. We didn't want to write songs about getting laid or getting hammered. That was never our deal, unquote. This album is obviously really special to you, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, it was having the 2.5 years that everyone went through. For me to come out of that and just write another record and go, here's a song about adversity. Here's a song about this. No, we all went through this shit together. And no matter what color tie you wear, no matter what, if you're an elephant or a donkey, I don't care what you are. I care about good people. We kind of came out of this and it stunk a little bit, right? And it kind of smelled a little shitty. And it was like, was all of this really necessary? And, we wrote this album before we found out that most of it wasn't necessary. The album was recorded before we found that out. But it's not a political album, but it is a social album. It's a social commentary album. It's an album about how people will preach one thing and do something else. It's an album about how people will try to cancel somebody because of a tweet they made when it was perfectly okay to tweet it at the time, but because you moved the line of what was acceptable and what's not acceptable now. Oh, now these people are going to be offended, or these people are going to be offended. Well, you know what? They weren't offended back then. You know, it's an album about cancel culture. And not, listen, by the way, we're not desensitized to this. I'm not, listen, Bill Cosby wasn't canceled. Bill Cosby was an asshole and a rapist. That's not getting canceled. That's called karma, and that's called getting what's coming to you. Harvey Weinstein wasn't canceled. Harvey Weinstein was a piece of shit. Kevin Hart is somebody they tried to cancel because he made a joke, which is what comedians do, by the way, for anyone listening. It's actually their job. It's in their job title. Whether you think it's funny or not is irrelevant. It's a joke, and you try to take hosting the Oscars away from a black man who there had only been one other, who'd been the second black man in history to host the Oscars. You try to take away because he made a joke 10 years ago when it was perfectly fine to say that joke, right? Whether you liked it or not is irrelevant. It's just about this mob culture of like, if we don't like something, we're taking you down. And it's like, that's such bullshit. And we couldn't sit and watch the world change to the degree that it was changing and go, oh, here's a song about nothing about any of this stuff that just happened. We had to write an album, and the whole album's about it. There's songs like Daylight on it that, lift you out of that. But this was never a happy album. It was never going to be a happy album. The next one will be, there's kind of I gotta be careful. There's kind of like a sequel to this album. I'm not gonna say it's all done, but it's in context, it's there already. I think that I'm gonna stop talking about it because I can easily get myself in trouble with the social commentary about it. I want everyone to listen to it and take whatever they want from it. There's a line in there that says, pledge your allegiance to the flag under your feet. There's, you might be woke, but not awake. There's a lot of lines in there that could have got us in a lot of trouble. But I think what we found when we put the record out was we're not a political band. And I think people realized like, oh, these guys aren't being political. They're just talking about things that are bullshit and should be unacceptable. And I think that's why people like it. I think that's why it took so well, and it had its highest debut. We've had our highest debut ever with it. Yeah.
Awesome. Oliver, Levon, and Avery Reagan, your kids. I believe Oliver turned, 6 at the end of March, and Avery turned 4 in mid-June.
Yep.
You said your favorite thing to do is to relax and to swim and fish with your kids. And you recently took them to the Delta Festival and said, quote, we came, we saw, we ate like human trash. Tell us some more fun and interesting things about them, please.
Oh man. I got the chill thing again. They're everything, man. They are everything. They are the coolest kids on earth. And, watching them become these human beings that they're becoming is so cool, man. We call them Tom and Huck. They live outside. They're gross as hell. They pick up snakes. They pick up frogs. They pick up worms. They bring them in the house. They're not afraid of anything. They're precocious. They're rambunctious. They're Tennessee boys, man. And they're Wisconsin boys too. My wife's from Wisconsin. We have a house up there. We spend every summer up there. We're literally less than half a mile from the beach. up there on Lake Michigan. And, in Memphis, we're out in Eads, tucked away. We got some land and we live on a lake, and they're wild boys, man. And they're humble, and you know, they're the coolest. They're the coolest kids in the world, man. They I don't need a paternity test, that's for sure.
Right.
They look exactly like me. They have long blonde hair. They look like surfer kids. They looked exactly how I did at that age. And they have big hearts. The youngest one's a little tougher to deal with. He's a little bit more like his dad in that way. I was talking to our stage manager out here for Shinedown one day, and my kid had just broken his elbow. We took him to the Creation Museum in Cincinnati, and he was climbing up this big design flaw, by the way. I think it's like you walk up like 3 steps onto this platform, and then you climb up a ladder, but there's a hole in the middle of the next floor that you're going to. And he got up to the very top and he fell. So he fell like 6 feet on his elbow, broke his elbow. Only time I've ever seen him cry over hurting himself. And we had to get a cast on, and our stage manager, Charlie, was asking about it. And I go, it's just hard having him in a cast because he doesn't listen to anyone. He doesn't like any sort of injustice towards him or anyone else. And he doesn't, he's just a hard ass. You can't tell him what to do. And our stage manager goes, oh, well, I wonder who the fuck he got that from. And I was like, all right, I can see that, I guess. I just, I'm not good with authority, man. I don't, I've never been in trouble like with the law or anything, but like, who are you to tell me what I can and can't do? That's kind of how I've always been, and if you tell me not to do something, I'm going to do it. And he got that side of me, but my oldest son got the food side of me, right? Like my oldest son, I'll wake up in the morning. He's 6 years old. He's making eggs and roasted tomatoes and, by himself, literally has a little stool out. It's got eggs. He's, I'm like, what do you do? Avocado toast. I'm like, who are you? And loves to cook. And, he's my bougie boy, when it comes to the food thing, but he'll also bring a 4-foot rat snake in the house. Catch it with his bare hands. I'm like, dude, get out of here with that. Like he's and they both love music, man. They're both really into it. They love Shinedown, but they like the Queen, and they like Elton John, and they like Beartooth, and they like the Presidents of the United States of America. They like all these bands, and it's just so cool, man, to I always wanted to be a dad and thought that was kind of my purpose, but I never knew if it would happen. Now I got the 2 best kids on earth. So I couldn't ask for a better life.
The love of your life, your wife, Bethany, you just celebrated your 8th anniversary on September 9th, I believe. A few of the things that she has said about you, quote, 8 years married to the best on earth, grateful you picked me. I love you more every day, unquote. She also said last year on your birthday, quote, happy birthday to my BF. I love being able to get old with you and getting excited about new heating pads, ice packs, and chiropractor appointments.
Yeah.
And she's the other amazing musician in the family. She's a classically trained pianist. I had the privilege of, meeting her a few times, and she's a sweetheart. Tell us about Bethany and the life you guys share together.
I don't know how much I could say. My wife is very private. Doesn't like me talking about her or posting pictures of her. I can say she's probably one of the best humans I've ever met. Definitely the best mom I've ever seen in my life. And I had a pretty fucking good one. And Bethany's, I think she's one of those people. She was born to be a mom. That's just what role she was supposed to be in. And just an amazing human. She doesn't want anything to do with any of this out here. She wants to be a stay-at-home mom, raise her kids, be a wife, and like that's her purpose. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's what she wants to do. She wants to raise good men, and that's what she's best at. I gotta be careful on how much she wants me to talk about her. She doesn't like me talking about her. man, we're open with each other. We talk about everything. Having a relationship that we have, being that open is you think it'll be tough. It's really not. It's a fundamental thing that keeps us going. Like I'm gone a lot, and she's got to hold it down, man. And she does. She's so good at it. But just her family's great. Wisconsin people. She comes from 6 kids. So, we bought during the pandemic, we bought a house literally 6 houses away from her parents' house. 6 houses in between us and them. And it's great for her. When I'm gone, she can go up there. The kids can, it's one of the safest neighborhoods on earth, and it's in Wisconsin. The kids, my kids walk to their grandparents' house with I'll call grandma, but hey, they're coming down there, and just look out the door and gotta see them walking down there. And now they're 6 and 4. Now they're just fucking going down there without asking.
Right.
Well, I'm going to grandma's. I'm like, hold on. So it's cool, man. She's got a great family, and there's 13 grandkids. So her parents love it. Parents still married. Her dad, my father-in-law, just retired, and we went out to his retirement dinner. And I remember there's a lot of us, and I bought the dinner for everybody. And he was like, you don't have to do that. I was like, listen, man, I go, nobody benefits from you being retired more than my kids, because they love him, man. They love him. Like, and he's very outdoorsy. He's a farmer. He was a farmer. That was his job, until he retired. He was an agronomist. He helped most of the food people eat in this world that was grown. He helped the people who grew it. He sold them the seed. He did all these things. So, he's a big outdoorsy guy. Loves fishing, loves hunting. So like my kids, they fish every day. Ollie wants to go. I've never hunted in my life, and I'm a big gun advocate. I got, 100 guns probably, and I can't go hunting. I can't. I just can't. It's a personal thing. I can fish all day long. I can't look at an animal standing there and kill it. It's just me. I feel like I could easily more kill somebody on 40 for cutting me off than I could an animal,
Right.
But they love him. So him being retired is great, but no, she's the best, man. She comes from a great family, and our relationship is so solid. And it's awesome.
Wonderful. What are the most important lessons that you've learned in your life, if you can name a few?
Don't rush. Nothing's important. Nothing you're trying to rush for isn't going to be there by the time you get there, no matter when you get there. Unless it's like the bus or some shit. A drunk lady in Scotland one time, me, Eric, and Barry were hanging out at a bar, and all the bars let out. For Europe, it's pretty early, actually. You wouldn't think it would be that early. It's like midnight or something. And when they do, it's like The Walking Dead. Drunk people in the United Kingdom are second to none. Literally, they're the most fun. They'll fight their best friends in the parking lot and then hug it out. It's so wild. And this lady comes up to me and Barry and Eric. She puts her arms around me and Eric, and she's like, we need to go get a drink. And I go, I didn't know this lady. And I'm like, I'd already been done drinking by that point for a long time. She's like, no, we need to get a drink. I'm like, no. I said, I don't drink anymore. And she goes, everything in moderation. She goes, including moderation. And I thought that's one of the greatest quotes I've ever heard in my entire life. And I still to this day live by it. Everything in moderation, including moderation. And I was like, man, what a fantastic quote. I live by that. And my advice is don't get caught up in someone else's business too. The same thing as I said earlier, like someone else's opinion of you isn't your business. Let people gossip, let people say what they want to say. None of that shit matters, man. If you're a good person and you're a good person, I don't care what anybody has to say about me. No one knows my life. No one knows me and my wife's life. You know, we're private people, but like if someone wants to get my music or whatever, like I don't care. I don't bother with it anymore. I used to. It used to really affect me. Now it doesn't.
How can people find you and follow you on social media?
I think it's Z Myers official on everything. ZMYERS official. And then Facebook, which by the way, I'm banned from Facebook again for 30 days. I just found out this morning, which is real bullshit, by the way. The night that a man was going around our beautiful city murdering people live on Facebook, someone shared a post of a girl tagging him and saying, "Oh, my cousin lives here," and put his address and said, "If you go kill him, I have your bail money." And I said something really rude, but it wasn't bad. It was like, your thought ass don't have no bail money. It's like, you probably only make $4 on OnlyFans or whatever. So I literally commented on a girl telling a psychotic serial killer who was going around killing people, commented on her post about her telling the guy to go kill someone else. Her page is fine, and I got deleted for 30 days for commenting.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think I'm pretty much close to being done with that platform. Not a fan. And they own everything, so it doesn't really matter, But yeah.
Well, Zach, I know you're really super busy. You're on tour right now, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to come
Dude,
on
man,
the podcast
thank you for
today.
having patience with me. You've asked me for a couple months, and again, my mental health was not in the best of states, and I was just like so stressed. I was like, how can I find time to do this? But man, you were literally one of the first people to ever put me on stage at a very early age, and I very much appreciate it. And and you've helped me out in numerous of your jobs in life. So it's very much appreciated. I'm glad I could do it. And this is honestly, man, you're really good at this. I don't know how you found out some of the shit you found out, but you're really good at this. I think you need to talk more though. I think when people are talking, you may give a little more back and forth. I think because you got a lot to say and you got a lot of really, really good questions. And I can see why people would like this, because they find out things about people that they wouldn't find out in a normal interview.
I appreciate you saying
I
that
hate
very
doing
much.
interviews so much. Like, dude, our management knows like that. I don't do the Lincoln Post Gazette anymore. Like, if you want to do an interview, it's like a video interview, because I've been misquoted so many times because I talk so much shit. I don't do it. I'm not a big interview guy anymore. I don't do it. But for you, I knew I would do it. And I honestly, it almost feels like a therapy session. I got to cry a little bit, and it's been good. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Man, thanks again. Appreciate your time.
Awesome, man.
All right. Take care.